everyone, it's Holly and welcome back to another Smash or Trash video that I fully intended to do in 2021 and never did because I went through like a 2-month reading slump where I didn't finish or read any book. But that's fine, we're here now. And we're going to talk about another fairy tale. I really like the fairy tale ones. And we're going to talk about The Little Mermaid. Now, this is a little different because The Little Mermaid is very specifically a Hans Christian Andersen story. It's not a story that's across all different cultures, although I'm sure there are some, like, tropes or themes that you can find across cultures, but this is very specifically a story written by one person that has then been adapted. And like a lot of fairy tales, I'm sure a lot of people's first exposure to this story ever was Disney's animated film, The Little Mermaid. We love Ariel. I should have worn my Ariel ears. That was my bad. Maybe they'll show up in a video at some point in this, because I'm not gonna go get them now. It also doesn't have as many retellings and adaptations, so this video is definitely going to be potentially on the smaller side because I have one adaptation. We're going to watch the Disney animated The Little Mermaid. I may briefly touch on the Broadway musical because I have seen it and it is different, and also I kind of just want to talk about the differences with somebody and like just like talk about why we made those differences, but whatever. And then for retellings, we're going to talk about two. We're going to talk about To Kill a Kingdom, which is a YA fantasy adaptation or retelling, and The Little Android by Marissa Meyer, which is a novella. Did I consider doing The Sea Witch by Katie Robert? Yes, I did. Because I have read it. I did like it. But I don't think we're going to. I'm kind of thinking about maybe doing one of these videos where I do like spicy retellings and maybe we can explore things like that. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. I would probably also want to reread The Sea Witch, and I don't really have time in my schedule to do that right now. I will talk a little bit about background information about the actual story itself of The Little Mermaid, but before that, I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience. I had actually never read The Little Mermaid before. I thought I had, but then I read it and I was like, no, I never read this. I knew the ending because, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people talk about it. I personally learned the ending from an episode of Dark Angel. If you watch that show, you are cool. So it does not have a happy ending. Hans, can I call you Hans? Are you okay? Like, I've read 2 stories from you, maybe 3. I can't remember if I've read the Ice Queen or not. And both of them are not happy. And also both of them have really weird feet things where like bad things happen to women's feet. So, you know. Are you okay? The other one I've read, by the way, is The Red Shoes. I've read The Red Shoes. Also, it's a famous ballet. So, but yeah, it was like darker and sadder than I thought it was going to be. There was like some really messed up stuff in here. Yeah, really sad with me. It's a beautiful story though, in my opinion, but a hard read actually. So I had never read it before. All I had done was seen the Disney movie like a million times. Of course, I love The Little Mermaid. I am a fan of it. We love a Disney movie that has a prince character who has a name, a character, you know. I love Scuttle. I love a good Dinklehopper. I love Max. We like a good dog. Sebastian. I did watch the Little Mermaid animated TV show that was out when I was a youth, so I did watch that as well. And then actually I had read The Little Android before, and I'm rereading it for this video, and I really enjoyed The Little Android the first time I read it, so we'll see if I like it again. But now let's talk about the actual background information on the actual story itself. Now let's talk about the background on The Little Mermaid and kind of like some theories or ideas about the themes and the point of the story. So I want to say, just like to start, my general observations of reading The Little Mermaid. I can't remember if I said this in the intro or not. Sorry if it's repetitive, but I realized when I read this, I had never read it before. I thought I had read The Little Mermaid because I knew how it ended, but I definitely didn't know the full ending, and yeah, I definitely had never read this before. So just general observations on it. One, it was very tragic, like in so many ways. Not just the ending, like that part is sad, but there's a scene where her sisters like come up to like look for her basically. And I don't know, that scene just like got me right in the feels, like heartbreaking. But at the same time, the ending almost has a hopeful element to it, but it's weird. I think we'll talk about this a little bit later. The next thing is that it was very gruesome. I think I said this in the intro. There were moments that Anderson described made me super uncomfy and like, ugh, not good at all. The other thing is, and I think this is more because they come from watching like the Disney movie, is that her family, her sisters, she also has a grandmother in this story, are all very positive relationships, and they care about her. And that's like the complete, I mean, I think, you know, I don't think her family hates her in The Little Mermaid, the Disney movie. And obviously I think Triton loves her. But, you know, kids don't always get along with their dads. But her sisters definitely don't connect with her. And there is a little bit of a divide here, but they do care about her. And I wasn't really expecting that. Also, I feel like you don't often see positive relationships between women in fairy tales. So that was nice to see. And the last thing was, this felt very complex. It's not very long, but I feel like you could sit with this story for a long time. You could analyze it in tons of ways. Like, there are so many ways you can interpret things, and I'm sure Anderson had a purpose to what he was writing, and I think you can read his purpose in it. And that's like some of the stuff that I read online and everything. But also you could read other things into it, or you could take things out differently based on your experience or what you've seen or other books that you've read. And for such a short little story, it really does have a lot of like depth and like a lot you can chew on if you wanted to. The next thing, and this goes in with the complexity, is like, what is the purpose of this? What is the message? And I really struggled coming out of this knowing what it was trying to do. Like, is it about love? What kind of love? Is it about love being healthy, unhealthy, toxic? Is it about immortality? Whether that be like, mostly by that I mean like, well, yes, immortality, because I don't think the mermaids really die. Like, they can be killed, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't remember. Or maybe that's not explored. But this idea of, I think there is definitely a religious element to it. And so like religious immortality, the mermaids don't have souls. So that is an element to it. And then she's given this opportunity, spoiler alert, the Little Mermaid is given the opportunity to obtain a soul. And to me, soul is often equated with immortality, because it's not necessarily immortality on Earth in this like body, but it's immortality in the afterlife. That's usually how people look at things like that. I did read some analysis, and I will link websites down below that I found that I got some information from. I also have some books from when I was in college I used. I'll read some stuff from there that I thought was interesting. But there was a lot of talk about the story being about ultimate self-sacrifice, and that being kind of the purpose, and you being rewarded for self-sacrifice, and Anderson really believing in that. Similarly, there was also some discussion about the story maybe being about female suffering and lack of agency. And I do think suffering is involved, but I don't think in the way that this theory and idea is proposed. I can see where people would say this from our perspective, but I definitely don't think that it was Anderson's intention. That doesn't make your analysis of it any like more wrong or anything like that. I just don't think that's what he was intending. A lot of people agree that it's a very layered story. You can read things a lot of different ways, which is how I viewed it. It's one of the reasons I really enjoyed it. Next is a more general thing on Anderson. Now, I've only read one other story by Anderson, and that is The Red Shoes. But what people are saying is that he generally seems to enjoy suffering, or like exploring suffering as a topic, particularly as a means to redemption. Somebody called it like maybe I called it this in my notes, but I wrote it in quotes, a cult of suffering. So this idea, there are like certain religious organizations that really believe in this, where you basically are redeemed and you find like glory in God and immortality in the afterlife through suffering. And you definitely do get that vibe from him, that that's something he believes in, thinks that people should do, probably in particular women and young girls should do, at least based on the two stories I read. But now I have two like quote excerpt things I want to read for you. Let me go grab those books. So like I said, I used some books from my college when I took a fairy tales class. I have this one. It's edited by Maria Tatar, I don't know. But I've actually used this a lot for these videos, so I'm glad I kept it. So the first one, and this is talking more generally about Anderson as a writer. She says, of all Anderson's characters, it is probably the Little Mermaid who is the real virtuoso in the art of silent suffering. After suffering the pangs of unrequited love, it talks about like all the physical stuff too, but after suffering the pangs of unrequited love, she is sentenced to 300 years of good deeds to earn an immortal soul. Here again, much of the representational energy in the text is channeled in the direction of portraying anguish and pain, transforming mortal agony into transcendent beauty. And I think that's kind of like what you get from Anderson. She says, cheerful self-effacement becomes the badge of Anderson's characters. Joyfully embracing death, they reproach themselves for their sins and endorse piety, humility, passivity, and a host of other virtues designed to promote subservient behavior. And so you have that idea, and I definitely see that here. And I think that maybe in a lot of ways Anderson is writing people, arguably girls and women, the way that he thinks that they should behave. Maybe people in general, but I think it is women. And yeah, that can make you a little, like, that idea can be a little dangerous, especially from today's perspective. I just think it's an interesting idea. Some final personal thoughts after reading the story and then reading some analysis and ideas from other people. To me, sacrifice seems to be one of the major themes here, specifically like selflessness to the point of sacrificing your own life, like to the extreme. But I also think there's an element, and whether this was I think it is intentional, but I think you can take it in a variety of ways, is this idea of striving for more. And so, yes, the Little Mermaid, she ultimately is like rewarded for this ultimate self-sacrifice, and she makes a lot of sacrifices, but she also strives for more. So in this case, like, she's striving for love, or what she perceives to be love. She's striving for a soul, striving for immortality. And you can look at that as potentially being a negative thing, or you can look at it as being a positive thing. You can also look at it as just being a human thing. And some people are content with their lives, and that is a happy place for them, and other people strive for more. And occasionally that means you get hurt, and occasionally that means you get rewarded. And I don't know, like I said, this is very complex. I have no idea how I'm supposed to take this story. Am I supposed to be happy at the end? Am I supposed to be sad? Am I just supposed to be a bundle of crazy emotions? I don't know. But now we are going to get into the retelling. Okay, so hello, sir. I just finished. Can I bring my leg up, sir? Jeez. Yes, you could stay here. I just want to. Sorry. So, I also have food cooking. So you might hear my toaster oven doing his like beeping thing. Like, sorry. Anyways, so come here. I just finished The Little Android by Marissa Meyer, and I've read this before. I feel like I liked it a teensy bit less this time, but I think it was because this time I was comparing it to The Little Mermaid, and I feel like the emotional payoff or like feelings, I don't know, in The Little Mermaid were stronger. But also I think there's something to be said for the first time when you read it. It's a lot more emotional. I highly recommend this story. It's a short story in the Lunar Chronicles. It doesn't really like add anything to the story, to the Lunar Chronicles. You see Cinder for a moment. That's really it. But it's a beautiful story. So it's about I don't want to like go through like what it's, I think you should just read it. But the Little Mermaid character is an android. Her name is, or their name, you know, is Mech 6. Which, while I was reading this, I realized the Little Mermaid never has a name in the story, like the original story, and her name isn't even like the Little Mermaid all capitalized. She has nothing. I don't know what that says about her as a character, or her as a woman, or her as a being. I don't know. And so here she doesn't have a name either. She goes through a transformation like in the Little Mermaid, and there she does get a name. She names herself, which I think is beautiful. I don't know, because I don't want to talk about like specific similarities, because I really think you should just read this like novella. I think it's so good. It does have a lot of the same beats as the original. It's definitely a similar story. I think you can read a lot into it, and this time I think I read it a little differently than I did last time. There is that like sacrifice element, and in multiple ways, just like in the original. I don't know. I think I wrote a short review for this the first time I read it, and I think I might write another one with more spoilery thoughts. Because I think that there is a lot here. I don't know if it's what Marissa Meyer intended, but I think that there is a lot here, which I think is awesome, comparing it to the original, because there I feel like you can go off on all these different tangents, and oh my gosh. And the ending again has that like a tragic sadness, but I feel like there's hope there too, and there's hope in a few different ways. It's actually funny because I still gave it 5 stars, because I very rarely drop reviews down, and honestly I think it's still a really solid 5-star read. When I rated it on Goodreads, I noticed it had like a 3.7, and I don't understand, why do people not really like it? Like, how do you not feel the emotion? I think it is a little complex, like it's a little hard sometimes to understand what's going on. So I can see people not liking that, and maybe like that makes it hard to connect with. I don't know. I mean, I'm a firm believer that like you read what you read and you rate it how you rate it, and that's fine. Oh, my glasses are like filthy. Oh my gosh, I'm not saying much. I'm sorry. Anyways, so smash or trash? Surprise to nobody, smash. For sure. So, yes, and I highly recommend it. We're here to talk about To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. I finished this last night. I stayed up until like 2:30 reading this, which was probably a mistake, but it's fine. My sleep schedule is all over the place anyways. So To Kill a Kingdom, I had heard about this book on BookTube, I think when it first came out, but not a lot after that. I came up on a list of books of Little Mermaid retellings, of which there are not very many. It's darker, it's YA fantasy. It's definitely on the darker side, like it opens pretty dark. One of our main characters, Lyra, who I guess is supposed to be the Little Mermaid character, she's pretty, I don't even know what word to use. Every year, so she's a siren. So there are mermaids in this world, but they're kind of different than what we're used to. They're more fish-like. So this really follows sirens and humans. And Lyra, her mom is the sea queen, and apparently when you become the sea queen, you turn in kind of like an octopus, like Ursula. I don't know, whatever, sure. But you are a siren. And so then for their birthday every year, to like track their ages, they go get a human and take their heart, and then they keep their heart. And Lyra, unsure, I'll probably say it both ways, always takes a prince's heart. So she's known as the Princess Bane. And then she ends up killing one prince who is our other main character, Elian. He is a prince. He knows that prince, and he actually is a siren hunter. And so he wants to kill the Princess Bane because, you know, she's killing people like him. And he's also kind of a pirate. He doesn't want to be a king someday. He kind of has a lot of wanderlust, those kinds of things. And then Lyra pisses off her mom. Her mom, not a great mom, for sure. So her mom turns her into a human and tells her she has to get Elian's heart as a human in order to return to the ocean. She loses her voice, in that she loses her like siren voice and her ability to sing, but she still can speak and everything. And so then she ends up rescued by Elian's ship, and things progress from there. There's like some kind of political stuff, there's a magical element going on, yeah, like spoilery things. And this book is newer, so I don't want to go too much into the spoilery stuff. There is a romance. It is most definitely enemies to lovers, in like the way that like legitimately these two are trying to kill each other. Now, when Lyra is on Elian's ship, she knows who he is, but he does not know that she is the siren in question that he's seeking. But they still have like a lot of animosity towards each other. Honestly, I'm not sure this is a Little Mermaid retelling, and I get that you have to do things for marketing, and that's fine, but like, it's not a Little Mermaid retelling. Just because a book is set following a sea creature like a siren or a mermaid, and that siren or mermaid becomes a human and there's a prince, to me that does not make a Little Mermaid retelling. I guess like, yeah, in theory there are like parts of it there. Murphy. And you could say, I think in a lot of ways at this point in our society, the Little Mermaid has become such just part of society's understanding of stories, that most stories in some ways about mermaids or sirens is going to be inspired by the Little Mermaid. That and or mythological stories are or like, is it Homer that wrote the siren thing? I don't know. But I don't think that makes it a Little Mermaid retelling, personally. So yes. So that being said, smash or trash? I'm gonna say trash. Like, trash as a Little Mermaid retelling. Oh, there's also sea foam. The sirens turn to sea foam when they die. But I just don't think, I don't know Alexandra Christo. I don't think this was meant to be a Little Mermaid retelling, personally, and I don't think it is a good one, if it was. That being said, as a book, I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed it. It's very, like, murky feeling, like, the morality can be a little murky, the characters are a little murky, there's a lot of confusing stuff, like, there's magical elements that are never fully explained, there's political things that you kind of get, like, peeks at, but a little murky. The whole overall vibe feels very, like, murky and subdued, like you're kind of like reading it through like a haze. I don't know. I kind of felt this way about House of Salt and Sorrow, I think. Kind of like that. That book was a little creepier than this. This isn't that creepy. But it is dark. I thought the ending was a teensy bit rushed. But in general, I enjoyed it. I think it's a good book. I think some people will be really bothered. Like, some people won't like it at all. But I think for some people, this will be a new favorite. But I just don't think it's a Little Mermaid retelling. So, that's what I gotta say. Let's ignore the mess that is behind me because I have 100% outgrown my library. And instead of trying to figure it out, I've just amassed stacks of books. Yeah, that's cool. Anyways, that's not what this video is about. So, this is the last part of this Little Mermaid video, which I feel like this smash or trash has been going on for like 9 months. It's like I've birthed a baby. Anyways. So, Little Mermaid, the movie. I do believe that that was a big yawn. I think there are more than just like the Disney animated movie, but that's all I watched. I'm gonna be honest with you. I feel like there's not a lot though. It kind of surprises me that there's not more Little Mermaid adaptations. I don't know why that surprises me, but it does. I do know I'm still really confused if there is going to be a live action remake of it. I can never tell if like it's really happening or not. But that's cool. So yes, Little Mermaid, it is on Disney Plus, like most Disney movies at this point. Not all of them, but most of them, if you want to watch it. I grew up, as a little bit of backstory, I grew up a pretty big Little Mermaid fan, I'm not gonna lie. They re-released it in theaters when I was a kid and I went and saw it. I got like a poster and like a button. I think one of the things I always liked about The Little Mermaid as a kid was that the Prince character was like a character. Also, the music is amazing. I mean, Alan Menken and Howard Ashman are just like gods. So, not a surprise. But I've also seen The Little Mermaid 2. And I did watch the Little Mermaid TV show as a youth, so I was really into it. But I hadn't seen it in several years, so it was kind of interesting to watch it again. And I have seen actually The Little Mermaid on Broadway as well. Not on Broadway, I saw it here in Rochester, but still, which is a Disney production, but they changed the story a little bit, which is kind of weird. It was odd. Anyways, but The Little Mermaid movie, I think, just like when I did Beauty and the Beast, I think The Little Mermaid movie is how a ton of people are exposed to this story, at least here in like the US. I think that becomes your basis for what Little Mermaid is. And I think even when you have adaptation, like retellings, I think they're more retellings of this story than the original story. Not to say that that doesn't happen. Like I think The Little Android by Marissa Meyer that I already talked about, I think that was more inspired by the original story than the Disney movie. I don't even know what to say. Obviously it's different. It has a traditional happy ending, because I actually don't think Hans Christian Andersen's Little Mermaid has like an unhappy ending. I think you can think a lot about that story, and a lot of people have different opinions on what the ending means. But here you have a traditional happily ever after. Spoiler alert for a movie that came out like before I was born. Ariel and Prince Eric end up together, and they end up defeating Ursula, the sea witch. So there is no sea witch character in, well, yes there is, but she's not like, to me, a villain in the original story. But I think how we make a lot of films, especially films geared towards children, you need more clear cut and everything. This does have a lot of similarities to the original story. You can tell where they got the story from, but Disney made it its own, obviously adding music, adding a lot of humor, adding a traditional happily ever after, adding an actual romance, although they do that like, oh, Murphy. They do that like almost take the happily ever after away from Ariel, which I think is really good. And I actually... I have noticed this more and more as I've gotten older. Like, I always knew, like, I always understood Triton, like, giving up his daughter, and, like, how there's, like, kind of a sadness there seeing your kids, like, grow up and leave and become their own people. But I think as I've gotten older, even though I'm not a parent, I see that more now, and I feel that more now. Oh my gosh. And that really gets to me, you know? And it's these moments that I think personally, as an aside, I think Disney does very well. Pixar as well. I don't know. This is very rambly. I think The Little Mermaid is an amazing movie. Smash or trash as an adaptation. I say smash. I think it's a great adaptation. I think you can see the source material. They made it their own. There's some things that I kind of like from the original that I almost wish Disney had done. Like, I know they have a condensed period of time, but I kind of wish you had like a sisterly relationship. That is something that I like that we get in the original. And in To Kill a Kingdom, one of the retellings I read, you have that. Like, you have those like bonds. And I do really like that as well. Obviously, I think with Disney movies, you're limited in how long you have and how much of a story you can tell. But it's still a great movie. Okay, that's it. Thank you. And so that is another smash or trash video in the books. And I think this was a fun one. It was definitely a smaller one, which was a little bit reassuring for me. Nice, restful. I think we're going to revisit an old story for the next one, because there is a lot of content for that story. And I do want to do more fairy tales, but I'm kind of like running out of ones that I'm interested in, and I feel like there's enough retellings and adaptations of. Like, I would love to do Rapunzel, because I would love to talk about like OG Rapunzel, but I just don't know. Like, are there even Rapunzel retellings? I don't know. Well, Eloisa James, she has one, but that's like the only one I know of. Yes, I know there's adaptations. We could always talk about like Into the Woods has some Rapunzel-y bits. I don't know. Oh, the Little Red Riding Hood. That could be a good one. I just thought of that. So maybe we'll pursue that. But yes, for now, this is another one. There should be another one in a few months, barring any reading slumps that hopefully don't occur. And I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.